So collusion can be difficult, right? As we've already seen, firms are likely to cheat on collusive agreements. And there are a lot of times when collusion is less likely, right? And so obviously, if cartels are illegal, they're less likely. If the penalties are steep, they're less likely. If there are lots of firms in the market, it's going to be hard to get together, right? There's a collective action problem. If firms have dissimilar costs, and so one firm is, say, a price leader, and their costs are lower, they're less likely to want to collude with anybody else. If products are differentiated, that's going to be make collusion less likely as well. Also, if demand and cost conditions are unstable, and so the problem with that is that if demand is going up and down, then it's hard to tell if your collusive partners are cheating on how much they are producing, or if their costs are going up and down. Then so they're going to have to change their prices a lot. It's hard to tell if they're cheating. And if entry barriers are low, right? So if you're colluding, you've got 5 firms colluding and making monopoly profits, but entry barriers are low. Someone's just going to come in and set a lower price and take all of those profits from you. So let's think about when collusion might happen. So one option is just colluding based on geography, right? This is perhaps the simplest and one of the more common ways to collude. And basically the idea is that each firm then becomes a monopoly with respect to its own set of customers. So maybe there's one firm doing New England, one firm doing the South, one doing, the northern Midwest and the southern Midwest, one doing the West, or in this sort of international market we have today, sometimes there have been collusions where one firm focuses on the US and one firm focuses on Europe and another firm focuses on, say, East Asia and another on South Asia. So Frost and Greer back in 1977 found that, of the 20th century price fixing cases that they looked at, 26% involved cartels that just divided up the markets geographically. Another possibility is this most favored customer clause, which is sometimes called a low price guarantee. And basically you say, all right, well, if you buy from me and you're one of my most favored customers, then if you buy it today and then the product is discounted by a competitor in the future, then I'll give you the difference in terms of that price. And so the problem then is that it substantially lowers the payoff from cutting today's price. And so if we think about it, so let's think about the same game basically that we looked at before. The numbers are a little bit different here. But if both firms set the cartel price, PC, then they both earn 20 in profits. But if one undercuts the other, then they get 22 and the other one gets 17. But then if they both have the lower price, then they both get 18, right? So same basic setup, same prisoner's dilemma type setup. The Nash equilibrium will be PL, and they'll both earn 18. But with the most favored customer clause, now they have to give back some of that extra profit if the other firm cuts their prices. And so that reduces the incentive to lower your price from PC to PL by some amount, right? We'll call it R dollars. And in this case, if R is greater than 2, so that this becomes, so the payoff becomes 22 minus, say, 3 or 19, then you have no incentive to cut your prices, and we end up with only one Nash equilibrium, and that's the cartel outcome. And so now something that looks good for customers, the most favored customer clause, ends up actually hurting them and making collusion more likely. A similar, really similar, I don't even know if it's really that different, is a meet the competition clause, right? And so a store guarantees to match the low price of any competitor. So you see this all the time with, Walmart and Target and Best Buy. But basically it's the same thing, right? Is that now if anybody cuts their prices, everybody cuts their prices, and you end up with lower profits. So there's no incentive for anybody to do it, and you can end up at a higher profit equilibrium. It's not better for the consumers, it's only better for the firms. And so again, both of these examples are examples that look good for the customer, because it looks like firms are saying, hey, we'll give you the best price, but they end up not being good for the customer, right? They end up being good for the firm because they make tacit collusion much more likely. Remember, this is just tacit collusion, right? There's no explicit agreement here. Another possibility is so-called trigger strategy. And so in the prisoner's dilemma, right, we think of it as a one-shot game, but really these games are repeated, right? Firms compete time and time again in the marketplace. You can think of it as, daily competition or monthly competition or yearly competition, but they're competing over and over. And so Friedman said, all right, well, what if we have a trigger strategy? And my trigger strategy is basically saying, hey, I'm going to cooperate with you. I'm a good guy. But if you turn on me and you cut prices, I'm going to cut prices forever. And so basically this is saying, all right, well, we can earn monopoly profits, you and me together, or we can earn no profits. It's up to you. And so if we think about it, right, then if we are colluding, assuming we only have two firms, right, because that makes it a little bit easier to think about, then we each are getting the cartel profits or half the monopoly profits, so pi m over 2. If I cheat and undercut you, then I steal the entire market, and I basically get monopoly profits, right? Maybe monopoly profits minus a little bit. But after that, we get 0. And so for the trigger strategy to work, the current value of colluding, right, that pi m over 2 discounted into the future is going to have to be greater than pi m. And so most of the time that will in fact be the case, but it's going to depend on your discount value, right? D. And so if firms have a low discount value because they're worried about going out of business maybe, or demand is particularly high this year, they may be willing to cheat. As the number of firms increases, the profits from collusion falls, so firms may be more willing to cheat. And so basically this is called the fundamental principle of collusion. And the idea is that a trigger strategy is more likely to support collusion when there are fewer competitors and future dollars are more highly valued, right? Or so D is higher. And so when there's less uncertainty, profits are clear, that's when collusion is more likely.